Alrighty, let's talk about something that it's kind of near and dear to my heart. It is. It's near and dear to my heart, but I think it's also something that's very misunderstood. Mainly because people usually fail to consider a lot of the deeper ramifications of doing. They fail to consider a lot of the logistical stuff, to be honest. But New Zealand is officially qualified for the World Cup. That's great. They haven't been to the World Cup since 2010. My namesake, my spiritual homeland. And I'm happy that the All Whites are back, right? And before you go call me a stark raving racist, that is literally their national team nickname. Their rugby team is the All Blacks, and their field hockey team's called the Black Sticks. So you're welcome. Basketball team, the Tall Blacks. I got fun facts all day. That also feels more racist than calling their soccer team the All Whites. So, for whatever reason, New Zealand's decided to name all of its national teams that way. Their football team is headed back. I said that specifically for the people that were triggered by me saying soccer a few moments ago. But there has been some noise, some commotion about them actually making the World Cup. So for those that don't know, there used to be a system where if you got out of Oceania, like let's say for the 2022 World Cup, you win Oceania, which is obviously the football federation of basically the freaking Pacific Ocean, right? Then you go into the Interconfederation playoff. Okay, so New Zealand went to that and lost the last couple of times for the 2014, 2018, and 2022 World Cup. One time they lost to Uruguay, right? You come up against kind of random teams from around the world, and New Zealand would give them a go, but they'd end up losing. Right, New Zealand made it in 2010 because they got through that Interconfederation playoff. Now, before that, Australia was in Oceania. Okay, so there was a qualifying process that it changed a couple of times, but it was usually Australia or New Zealand. They would be playing against each other in some sort of final, and either the winner would automatically go, or they'd have to go into some sort of playoff, or they'd have a direct line playoff with like the last Asian team that had a chance to go in. Right, there were a lot of different systems, but this is the first time that we have Oceania with a full World Cup qualifying spot. They have 1.5. Sorry, I believe it's officially considered 1 1/3. They do get to send a team to the Interconfederation playoff as well. That team is New Caledonia because they made the final, but they lost to New Zealand. And then you pull up this. This is New Zealand's road to the World Cup. They played their group stage against Tahiti, Vanuatu, and Samoa. They managed to obviously smoke all of those teams. They played semi-final match against Fiji, and they played the final match against New Caledonia. Now, I will say, the New Caledonia-New Zealand match was 0-0 61 minutes in. So it was not like that was a cakewalk the entire way. New Caledonia is very clearly the second best team in Oceania right now. With the way they played in that game, they just kind of lost heart, on that big stage after the first goal went in. In the game, it got away from them. The game fell down and got away from them. New Zealand is going to the World Cup automatically after these 5 matches against 5 teams that are not able to boast an entirely professional national team setup. That is the truth. That is 100% the truth. And even if they are technically, a professional setup, you don't have a full national team at New Caledonia of guys playing in recognized high-level professional leagues. And with New Zealand, you do have that, right? There are clubs in New Zealand. There's like there is the infrastructure. They've got the national team. Even if you don't consider the Aussie League to be a particularly high level, that's where they're at. And a lot of people came in and immediately were like, well, how does New Zealand get this spot? How does, why does Oceania exist? Why does the Federation of Oceania exist in the first place? That was a lot of people saying this, like, they just need to fold in with the Asian Federation. That makes the most sense. I mean, after all, Australia left Oceania to go to the Asian Federation, which was fair. Australia had like 75 to 80% of the total population of the Federation when they were competing against it. I mean, I don't know how that helps anybody, but now that they've left, New Zealand has something like 60 to 70% of the total population of the entire region now that Australia is out of it. Australia moved to AFC because of money, though, really. We're going to be completely honest. Money and better competition for the national team. But having the Aussies, that is a good economy, good sporting culture, right? If Australia's making an Asian Cup, it also gives you the opportunity to host Asian tournaments in Australia, right? And that revenue is able to pay for Australia to travel because Asia is fucking huge. The qualifying in Asia is insane. You know who plays in Asia? Let me pull this up for you. You know who plays in the Asian Federation? Guam. Guam plays in the Asian Federation. Do you see where Guam is? They're in the Asian Federation. Like you can get drawn in a group with the Guam national team. Okay, and they're all the way over here. You know who else is in the Asian Federation? Lebanon. Lebanon is on the Mediterranean Sea. It's huge. Asia is massive. And there's not only that, you're dealing with countries that aren't overly developed. I mean, Guam has an airport, right, and everything, but it's a small island nation. It does not have direct flights to Lebanon. You're not flying out in freaking New York or London or Paris here, all right? You are flying from Guam to Lebanon and back. Or Palestine. You give them a shout out there too, because Palestine obviously is, I think they play their home matches in Jordan, so maybe it's not quite as close. Right? But you have multiple nations, Syria as well, that are on the Mediterranean that play in this tournament. And they're qualifying against Japan, Guam, the Philippines, and Australia. That's why it was so insane to add Australia to this in the first place. Now, granted, it is close to a country like Indonesia, which is obviously also in the Asian Federation. The truth of why Oceania still exists is because these teams, Fiji, New Caledonia, Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands, like Solomon Islands, right? There's somebody's up here. Nauru's in Oceania, but they're not in FIFA, I believe, so they can't qualify for the World Cup. Right? They're not big money draws. You're not going to be able to host tournaments there. Somebody is basically just going to have to pay to fly a team from New Caledonia to Lebanon or Kuwait or Qatar or UAE. So Oceania exists to give these teams an opportunity to play. Because economically, logistically, it would not be possible to develop a football team, a national team in these countries that plays against other countries if they had to travel all across Asia. You're not going to be able to get these teams up to Tajikistan to play. Right? That's just too far and too expensive for the zero that they're able to contribute. You've got New Caledonia at freaking Nepal or Oman or Yemen, right? Or Jordan. How are they going to be able to pull that off? Maybe New Caledonia could give them a game. They gave New Zealand a game, but it just doesn't make any logistical sense at all for Oceania to fold into Asia. I mean, Cook Islands, and look at where they are. That's where Cook Islands is. Do you see where the Mediterranean Sea is on that? It's all the way over there. They're that far away. It's logistically impossible until there's like a dramatic improvement in the ability of human beings to go from one place to another. For Oceania, so Oceania is going to exist. Now, why do they have an automatic spot? That's the other part of this conversation, right? Well, there's the public reason and then there's the private reason, okay? The public reason is that you want to give an opportunity to these types of teams because now a team like New Caledonia that hung with New Zealand for 61 minutes, they weren't getting wiped away in that game when you look at the stats. They were in that game. They were competitive with New Zealand, and then eventually the dam broke, right? Then they didn't have the experience in that situation to handle it. Now they're going to get that experience. They're going to the Interconfederation playoff. They're going to play against Venezuela. They're going to play, I'm just picking teams that are kind of in that spot right now. They're going to play against Venezuela. They're going to play against Cape Verde. They're going to play against Gabon. They're going to play against Iraq, former Asian champions, right? They're going to play against maybe the UAE, maybe Qatar. All of these teams that could be in the Interconfederation playoff, and New Caledonia gets a shot at them to actually go to the World Cup. They get a big stage with a chunk of the world watching to see if they can pull it off. Now, I think that's great. Like, that's obviously having the 1.5 gives that team that opportunity. It also likely gives New Zealand a lot of free tickets to the World Cup until Tahiti, New Caledonia, Fiji, these Solomon Islands, these nations that have enough people and enough sporting culture infrastructure to be able to really do this. Because like Cook Islands has 14,000 people. They're just not really realistically ever going to be able to make it to the World Cup, while those other nations, they can. And Solomon Islands has twice as many people as Iceland. You can get a good team out of that, right? And they've got a lot of islands, a lot of people, competitive top league that's been going for a little while and produced a couple good players. Like, we'll see how it works, right? But the reason to have the 1.5 spots, actually, like not the optimistic public relations reason, is the way FIFA works. The FIFA president is elected in a vote by every nation in FIFA. Every single nation gets one vote. This means that Brazil and the Cook Islands have the same voting power for the FIFA president. So how do you make sure that every single member of Oceania votes for you? You give them 1.5 spots. Now they have one automatic spot. Now teams like Tahiti, New Caledonia, and even the Cook Islands, if they have a golden generation, can dream. All they have to do is get to that game and shithouse New Zealand, and they can go. Or maybe even just going to the Intercontinental Playoff is like the great achievement that they could get. It's for votes. I mean, that's the real reason. But the reason they're not in AFC makes complete sense. And New Zealand going to the World Cup, I mean, shoot. Fun fact of the day is New Zealand was the only undefeated team at the 2010 World Cup. They drew all 3 group stage matches and then dipped. So, New Zealand can hang. And I'm going to be rooting for them. My namesake goes hard.